right, I think we're about to be there. We're live. Hey.
Hey, everyone.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Katab Rollins with NJPAC, and I'm here with the 2017 winner of the Sarah Vaughan vocal competition, Quiana Lynell.
Hey, everybody.
It is a joy to meet you and to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah. I had a great time with Lauren last time, and you're gonna continue the fun.
That's my girl.
What made you smile today?
What made me smile today? Sunshine, a deposit in my bank account. I got a check in the mail. Coming on this show, putting on red lipstick. Like, red lipstick is sacred to me. It means I'm going to work. And, I haven't gone to work in a minute. So when I get to put on the red lips, it's like, okay.
Putting on real clothes in general is like a feat these days. So yeah. I'm like into it. I'm into it.
Yes.
Let's start. Let's start with like your growing up. You grew up in Texas, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me about your growing up life. What was life like as a child in Texas and your family?
So I grew up most of my elementary years way in West Texas in a little town called Abilene. And it was interesting. I grew up like one of maybe 2 or 3 minorities in a classroom. So that's a part of my childhood. I grew up in school systems that really valued music as a part of education. So I've had music education as a kid. I can always remember doing Christmas programs. Every holiday we had a program, learning songs about every piece of American history. That's how I would learn American history, because I'm like an audio and verbal. Like I have to say it and hear it. Mm-hmm. So singing songs to remember things was like my favorite thing to do. That's was my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Being a star in all the programs.
I remember when I was in elementary school, my music teacher taught us a song to name all the U.S. presidents. And to
we did the states.
I remember a lot of it.
Exactly.
The whole president
There's so many things that I learned by songs, and I can still sing them to this day. I like the 50 states. I can name them in alphabetical order because of a song we learned in like 3rd grade.
It sticks. Yeah. So what was home like? I read that you grew up in a rather religious home.
Yes.
So how did music fit into your religious home?
So the music that we would partake in, the religion that I was brought up in, was very strict, and there were no instruments allowed. There was only vocal singing. The only instrument was the voice. Even to this day, my mom would be like, I'm sorry?
Were you Pentecostal growing up?
No, it's a religion called the Church of Christ.
Okay, I've heard of that.
And so they don't have any instruments. And my mom to this day will be like, I mean, if I could just hear you a little more, they could turn down that piano a little bit, and let me just hear your voice. And I'd be like, Mom, you can't. So there were no instruments, very strict, not strict, but very tight harmonies. Mm-hmm. I learned how to harmonize as a kid. Like it was just something we did. We didn't sing the same note ever. So my mom didn't know what she was telling us by pick another note. It was a race to see which note you could find that would match, quote unquote, Okay. We were making these textures and these polyphonies on our own. We didn't really read the music that was in the songbook, the hymnal, as a kid. As I got older, I knew how to read the notes, and I would look at my mom like, do y'all know y'all not singing this song right? And they would be like, we don't care about that. Just sing the song. And I'm like, I can't really look at these notes and not sing what's up. So it's funny to me, being Black in America, the code switching that we do and the things that we learn that are formal versus living the life that is our story of the griots and way people pass things down to us. People they don't understand things that, you go off and you learn something in the world and you come home and your mom's like, we don't want to. It's like going to your grandma's kitchen and telling her, don't use salt. Like, grandma going to use what she want to use. You know what I'm saying?
A teaspoon of salt. I'm going to use what I want to use.
what? Don't put the turkey necks. Nah, but she putting these turkey necks in there, you know? So that's kind of the relationship that I had with music growing up. It was, I would learn things at school, come back to church or home, and it would be like, yeah, that's cool, but this is what we do here. But it really afforded me an ability to have really big ears, as we say in jazz, you know, but not necessarily. I couldn't always explain the things that I would learn, like through my family or through church singing.
Mm-hmm.
It really was some deep. Now that I have studied more, it was really some deep things that we were doing just naturally. Versus,
did you sing together as a family? Mom,
yes,
dad, siblings?
yes,
You?
yes, everybody, everybody. My grandmother. That, like, it's funny on my album. I have 4 generations of my family singing background with me on "Sing Out March On." Yeah, on that song, "Sing Out March On." That's my family. I went home and recorded my family. It's my grandmother, my brothers and sisters, my dad, my great uncle, my aunts. Like, my sister was pregnant, my nieces, nephews. There were about 20, 25 of us in my grandmother's house, as we always do, like Christmas, Thanksgiving. She has a list of songs that she wants us to sing. They're all church songs. You know, we get together, we sing church songs. And my dad is a bass, which maybe is a reason why I love the bass. I love bass tempered instruments, like the Barry sax is my favorite. But my dad is a bass, like the acapella type bass that's like singing the bass line, like the boom, 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 boom. Like that's the type of singing that we do. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I literally have had chills going through me as you're talking about that your whole family's in that song.
Whole family. My brother has one of the sweetest caramel voices. He's a tenor. Oh my God. Ooh. My little brother, he's phenomenal. Yeah, but I'm the only person that really is professional.
I'm going to guess between church and singing that food centered in that too.
You know it. Like that is the culture of Black America. Like food and music go hand in hand. Yeah. And now that I'm especially here in South Louisiana, like food, music, dancing all the time. That is life.
It's joy. That's joy. That's what joy looks like.
That is joy. It's love.
That's love. When did a switch go off and that said that you want to be a singer?
Well, I would say that I always wanted to be a singer. You know, I grew up in that time period where we were watching Whitney, watching Mariah come into their own. And that was my, like, you know, that was it, being like Whitney. I will say that I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to navigate that. I didn't know what that looked like, you know. And coming from the background that I come from, that's like unimaginable, you know. And I guess probably almost anybody's family be like, girl, get out of here. You know, those to dream to be a performing touring artist is like, people feel like it should just be a dream. It's not something you really should do. But when I really decided that I was going to do it regardless of what people said or how I felt, I was right after my divorce. So I was later. It was later in life. I had 2 kids, you know, had a house, and I was like, you know what? This is not the life that I envisioned for myself, and it's time for me to really try to get the life I want.
So before you made that transition to really being a singer, to being well, you're always a singer, that's who you are, but before you transitioned to singing professionally, what did you do before?
All right, so I did study voice. I went to school and studied voice at LSU. But you know, to be a performer, confidence is number one. And I did not have the confidence that I needed to be successful in this business. So I sang in the choir, I sang in choruses and opera courses. And then I had like a church job where I sang at a church, like a church paid vocalists from usually the universities to fill their choir. And so I'd have solos on Christmas, things like that. That was about all the singing that I would do. And then I met this Zydeco R&B blues band here in Baton Rouge while I was after I had, a little later, right before I really decided to go forward. That's how I got the bug to be like a a live audience right there, entertainer, like being a singer, being a vocalist is different, but I'm also an entertainer, and I enjoy taking people on a journey.
Being a singer and vocalist are different. Tell me more.
Well, I don't like, as a vocal coach, I really hate the word singer. Or singer kind of can apply to anyone. Everyone's born with a voice, and everybody can be a singer, but as a vocalist, I have trained, I work hard. There are things that I can do vocally that you can only attain through practice and technique. So I'm a vocalist, just like you have a flautist, a trombonist, a trumpeter, like, because people say singer and it's like, oh, she's just a singer. No. I trained for this. That's my little hashtag. I trained for this. So
correct my language.
Come correct with the, and I tell all my vocals, you have to, that also requires you to demand some respect, because as a vocalist, as a quote unquote singer, and I'll even say it's a graduation, you go from being a singer to a vocalist when you have put in your work and the form of a song, the changes of the song. You can play through that song and sing it yourself. You can call in people to sing the solos and transitions and those things. That's work that if you're just a singer, you may not know how to facilitate. But when you're a vocalist and a band leader and you're a musician, just because my instrument, I carry it around with me doesn't mean I'm not a musician. So that carries weight, and responsibility.
So do you prefer to sing? Do you prefer to sing with like a band, with solo? What kind of music makes you happiest?
Right about now, any. But in a perfect world, when I first, I'm very visual. I'm very like kind of meticulous. And when I put out my first like my 10-year plan, I guess, I looked at like Etta James in her highest form, and she traveled with like an auxiliary percussionist, 3 horns, a guitar player. She had a 4-piece rhythm section, 3 horns, and an auxiliary percussionist. And I haven't been able to travel or perform with that many musicians in a very long time. The last time I've really been able to perform like that has been with like a cover band, which is not really where I am right now, like a party band. That's very expensive. So once I am able to hire, that 7-8-piece band, I think that I'll be so happy. But for now, for me, perfect right now is being able to have a guitar player in my mix, a 4-piece rhythm section. I do like having another melodic texture that can counter with me. And right now it's a guitar. I've had a trumpet sometimes. I've had a trombone sometimes, but right now I'm really feeling guitar.
Talk to me about why jazz. How did you get into jazz music?
So jazz music is something that you better know it. I trained for this. So how has this happened? This is like somebody just commented. That's funny.
Yeah, we see the comments that happen on the Facebook Live.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Thank you. Right. I got into jazz. As I met that Zydeco and R&B band in Baton Rouge. We were playing, at little clubs, holes in the walls, weddings, Mardi Gras balls, things of that sort. And when we would show up to play at 9 or 10 p.m., there'd be these other guys leaving, like they had gotten there at 6 or 7. And I'm like, what were y'all? And they would have on like tuxes and ball gowns. I'm like, what were they doing before we came, And so then I would start coming early to the venues, and I was like, oh, it's a jazz trio that's like got this sophisticated, like, oh, okay, this is what y'all doing. And then I started doing some of those gigs with them, and I realized I had been singing jazz, like growing up in the music training that I had. There were all types of American songbook songs that I had learned and performed in my show choirs or as solos and things in school. And I was like, oh, I've been singing this music. So I started practicing and shedding with other quote unquote jazz musicians that were in this area. And I realized that they had this life that I really wanted. They were able to travel and tour the world and perform, and they were respected as musicians. And I kind of wanted that feeling.
So once you really discovered jazz after seeing them in the band, I take it that you then begin to really study because that's who because hashtag you trained for this.
Right.
Who
And jazz is like being a doctor, you know, like everybody has a brain, everybody has hands, but you have to go to school to be able to speak the jargon, you know, that it's a work or a framework that has specific guidelines and rules that if you haven't studied or worked with somebody that can help you facilitate that, then you can't participate, you know. Not that they don't want you to participate, but you have to be able to follow these guidelines. You know, you can't go in a court of law and just speak in layman's terms. You have to speak the language that's right. So that's how jazz is. You know, there are lots of musicians, but you got to go put a little work in to learn that vocabulary.
So as you immersed yourself in the world of jazz, who were some of the artists that you studied, that you began to really like, you began to study?
Right. So of course I started with Ella and Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. And honestly, it took me a while to get and Nancy Wilson. And then it took me, I know Nancy's like, it took me a while to venture into a lot of the other voices in jazz. As a classically trained singer, my ears usually navigate toward tone first. And if the tone is not what I find appealing to my ear, then sometimes I can't listen. I used to not be able to listen past the quote unquote deficiencies of what I thought then in tone. You know, now my ears are much more mature. I've learned character. There's things that we do on purpose to make our tone show different types of emotions. Whereas in the classical world, we don't really, our emotions are it's a different, you know, I don't really change my tone, my timbre to show that emotion. There are ways that I can act or portray or dynamics, but in jazz, you could change your tone, you know, to sound like a wispy saxophone, you know. And when I would think before, it was that, oh my God, what are they doing with their voice? And now I know these are intentional things to kind of emulate an instrument versus just focus on your instrument. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Totally.
Right. So once I matured, I totally ventured into Sarah and Betty Carter, and I was able to appreciate a lot of the choices and things that those ladies were also making.
So I am a jazz neophyte, right? My dad loves jazz. He talks about it all the time. We listen to it every now and again if we're together. But I'm like, I like it, but I don't really know what I'm listening to. So for the uninformed, really for me, if there were three artists, if there were three artists that I should really dive into to get myself in the world of jazz appreciation, who would they be?
That is such a hard question.
No, it's not.
Do you know how much music there is in this genre? You know how many artists have shaped? Do you know where this genre has gone in, like, you'd have to give me like a period, like traditional jazz, modern bebop, like the blue, like it's so. But I'm gonna try to give you a little.
All right.
You know,
this is the course. This was jazz. This was jazz 098, not even 101. This is jazz 098. My intro.
The first thing I would say is, if this is 098 and you have no idea, I couldn't give you three. I would give you a list of 50. Okay. And what I would tell you, this is what I would tell you. I would tell you to go listen to two songs of each of those artists, because essentially you have to listen to what you like. What you like is I can send you what I like, but it may not move you. I've had people send me, oh, you got to listen to this. This is when jazz did this. And I listen to it and I'd be like, am I missing it? But because it has to touch you. And, I don't know what instrument speaks to you. Does the trombone speak to you? Does a drum speak to you? Does a trumpet speak to you? Does a flute speak to you? Does the harp? It depends on what instrument really touches your soul and makes you go, oh, I can understand non-verbally what that person is trying to tell me, because those solos are conversations without words. And if you can't get the emotion and the story that person is telling without lyrics, I can send you to listen to all kinds of stuff and you'll be like, yeah, I just dinged it. You know what I'm saying? So first I need to know what kind of speaks to you. So I would send you some ballads. I know I didn't really answer your question.
But you did, because what you really did is you're reinforcing that, jazz isn't just putting some music
so fluid.
There's really a whole world to it.
Yeah. There's so many, and I mean, I can go modern if you want to listen to today's jazz. There's some people that you have to listen to, but they're totally different than what Louis Armstrong sounds like, totally different than what J.J. Johnson sounds like, totally different than what Marcus Miller or Miles Davis. It's totally different phases in the quote unquote genre of music, which is so vast. So it's too much to just dwindle down to three. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, that's fair. Let's stay about this kind of jazz education, right? So, as I started off, you're the 2017 winner of the Sarah Vaughan vocal competition. Congratulations, yay! So, how did you hear about the competition, and then what made you even apply for it?
All right, so I didn't really tell you when I decided. After I started singing with that R&B band, I got the bug, and I met the jazz artist, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And so I started researching. I started looking for people that are who I kind of wanted to be like. So in my mind, I was like, Diane Reeves is it for me. Like right now, if I had to pick somebody living who I would like, when, this is 10 years ago, I picked her, Dee Dee Bridgewater. I was like, these are the type of women, type of careers that I want to have. So I started just following them, looking at them. Miss Reeves, Diane, was a judge at the Sarah Vaughan competition. I started looking at the people who won the competition, the types of careers that they had. I started really studying. I'm meticulous about details. I'm about success, but I know success comes from knowing the game. You can't win the game if you don't know the rules. That's what I live by. So I looked into, if I want to be a touring jazz artist, an international touring jazz artist who's respected and known across the industry, what do I have to do to get my name in those rooms? And the more and more I looked around was the jazz competitions, like the Monk competition, the Sarah Vaughan competition. And when I found these competitions, I was nowhere ready to compete with the jazz people, because my jazz education had only been, still to now, my jazz education formally has been practicing with other horn players, shedding on the bandstand, like in New Orleans, sitting on car rides to gigs, talking to other musicians sending me things to listen to. So it took me, once I found the competition, I took about 2 years to really try to learn as much stuff as I could before I entered the competition. And then when I did, it just seemed to be 2017 was kind of the year that my life changed. It was just things on top of things. I met Terrence Blanchard, went on my first international tour with Terrence, performed in Poland. That was all in 2017. My Jazz Fest gig was put on international radio. My show was broadcast live across the world. It was all these little things that just started happening. And then that competition, I became a finalist, and I was like, oh, all right, let's go 2017. It was just ding, 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 ding. Everything on my list was check, check, check. I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
So what's life been like? So after you won, what's life been like? What happened? What's been new?
So winning the competition afforded me the opportunity to record my first album with Concord, right? So that came out last year. It's a little over a year old. I did a tour. Usually, you tour on an album maybe 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. So I really was in my first year of touring and COVID happened. So since that, I mean, I've played Playboy Jazz Festival. I've played at Carnegie Hall. Like things have been definitely building. My career has been growing, and you know, the arrow is going in the right direction. I'm just working and growing and teaching. You know, I've been teaching around the world, doing master classes almost everywhere I go. You know, the children and young people really keep you focused and keep you
Yeah.
sharp. Like
Yeah.
you can't be complacent when you're working with other students that are hungry. You know, they keep you on the forefront of what are you doing? Yeah.
Yes. So you're working on new music.
Yes.
What's swirling in your mind in your music that you're creating now versus your last album? What do you want to move to?
So I'm definitely writing. I'm writing my album. The first album doesn't have any of my original music on it yet. So this next one is definitely going to have some of my original tunes. I want to show that side. I still want to, you know, when you listen to my album, and then when you listen to my voice, like I said, I really do have many different characteristics, qualities, from the classical to the gospel to the funk to the R&B. Like I can sing. I guess I want to be an instrument that you can take from one room, put it, like you can play a bass in any genre of music. It's just the instrumentalist that can they play that bass in that music. So if my voice can fit in all those genres, I kind of want to be able to do it. You know, that's kind of my thing. So I have to keep that going forward. But I just want to write things that continue to bring people love and joy. You know, there's so much hurt right now, and one of the things I'm passionate about is mental health and parenting. You know, I'm a mom of two, and being a parent, especially right now, the last 6 months has taught me so much. And watching your children, like I have a 17-year-old who I'm having to like put my hands up and say, you know, like I can suggest, I can lead, but at the end of the day, it's kind of your decision. And that's one of the hardest things to do. So I know everybody goes through that. All parents go through that, you know. But in general, just in life, looking at people and know sometimes we have information and people may not take it from us the way that we want. And ultimately their decision is their decision. So I think my next project is going to be about, you know, loving and letting go. Like that's it. All you can do is give the love, but what they do with it is their decision.
We only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to cover a little bit more about the competition. So this year's competition is going to happen on November 22nd, and for you talented hopefuls out there who are watching right now, the entry period is until September 8th.
Send it in.
So for those who are even considering entering, what kind of advice would you offer?
The best information that I got was from my mentor, Terrence Blanchard. Terrence told me, once I got the entrance, once they said you've made it, I was like stressed. I looked up all the other entrants. I was like, oh my God, they went to Berkeley, they did this. And I'm not formally trained in jazz. And he was like, they picked you because they liked what they heard on those recordings. Mm-hmm. Don't go trying to be somebody else. So if you are selected, all you can do at the end of the day, all we can ever do is be ourselves.
Right.
And the more you dig into being you, like your light is going to shine. Like just take every moment as an opportunity to show who you are. Not trying to be somebody else, but really what your little pieces are, what your like qualities and timbres of your voice are. A lot of times in jazz, especially, people try to imitate and emulate other voices, but you really need to dig into what your voice does. Yeah, what does your voice have to say?
Well, Quiana, you said it best. You got to just be who you are. You can't go wrong being who you are. So again, this interview is part of the TD Moody Jazz Festival at NJPAC, and the Sarah Vaughan vocal competition will take place on November 22nd. Somewhere it'll either be online or it'll be in person, but it's going to happen November 22nd. And again, the entry period is until September 8th. you can go to njpac.org for more information, or go to sarahvaughancompetition.com by September 8th. Quiana, this
Just
has been
might change your life. Just might change your life.
You see it live and in person right here. This has been a great time talking to you. And before we go, I just want to say thank you. You gave me beautiful about like the education behind jazz and just behind music in general. So I thank you so much.
Yeah. Be a forever student. Always be a forever. You can never know too much. You can never be too prepared. Being prepared is what allows you to be comfortable on stage. I tell everybody that. People are like, how do you keep from being nervous? Know what you're doing.
So that's our time. Want to drop your handle on Instagram?
Please, everybody follow me, Quiana Lynell, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Go check out my album. I'm about to drop a nice little promo pack of a signed autograph cover of a magazine and an old EP that I released a couple years ago that nobody has. So check out the website, stay tuned, join my fan page, my little email list, and I would love to talk to you guys again.
It's been great. So guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks with Gary Walker, legendary Gary Walker. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in. And Quiana, all the best to you.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.